All right, this is that moment of truth. Let me make sure everything is live, and then we will officially kick in. Twitter, you up? Twitter's always first. It's always a battle for second. Who's going to be second? YouTube, you want the second spot? You want it? Huh? Ooh, you know what? I'm going to call today a tie. Rockfin really kicked in quick. And you actually, Rockfin is third. Or excuse me, YouTube is third. Apologies. YouTube is third. They woke up. Yeah, I have to see it first. I have to make sure it loads. Anyway, what's up, everybody? Good afternoon. It's afternoon everywhere because it's the second Monday of the month, which is when we do MMT time. This is Get Your News On with Ron. And we got a lot to talk about today. So the Supreme Court might be ending the internet as we know it. We're going to get into that last. We also have a net neutrality update. So a lot of digital rights today. But first, like I forecasted, we're going to start with MMT. This is that time of the month. Welcome to MMT time. And I'm going to bring in my MMT dealer who just started his master's degree. And he's going to share some of what he's been learning. Please welcome back to the show, the good one, not the other guy, Mr. Jeff Epstein. Jeff, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, Ron? Good to see you.
Good to see you. So congratulations on starting school. I know we talked about it last month, but you've officially begun.
Yep.
Classes are going. Are you having fun? Like, how are classes so far?
It is. I'm reading like a paper a day. It's really intense. And I mean, some of the stuff I've already read, but I'm just such a completely different person from when I originally read them. It's like I'm getting something absolutely completely out of them. It's a different, something completely different out of them. So it's pretty exciting. The people are great. I'm actually, you kind of inspired me a little bit. I'm actually doing weekly patron streams now with my classmates.
Oh, cool,
just for my patrons. I never did them before. So
nice. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, you know, I remember in graduate school, the reading load was kind of heavy. That sort of comes with it. But, you know, it's a lot of interesting stuff. So that is cool. So let's jump right in, man. What do you want to share with us today? I know you're kind of, it's sort of going to be like a re-intro to MMT. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, this subject is basically a high-speed intro to the basics of MMT. That's what this course is. And I chose to do it because I know a decent amount of it, and it's kind of my way of getting back into school, where clearly the next classes going beyond this are going to be very intense. What we started with is what you are very comfortable with, which is not the book Debt itself, but that content, that money is state-based. It is not gold-based. It is not barter, and it's absolutely complete nonsense. That blooms, that's the seed from which all nonsense blooms, is barter and the idea that money is backed with gold. And
Jeff, real quick, just to repeat that, the book that you reference is Debt, D-E-B-T.
Debt by David Graeber.
Yes.
Yep. And our interview, episode 100 of my podcast, is you and me talking about substantially that book. Yeah. So the nature of money was the first week of class. Tonight's week 5. So the first week of class was all about the nature of money. What is money? And, you know, people will say, well, it has to be backed by gold. And it's really interesting how that basically is the only thing that can have value is rocks in the ground. That's the only thing that can have value, which means that when the reality is that what actually the only thing that has value is our social relationships. The value of money is based on the power of the institution that issues it. The value of the US dollar is based on the power of the United States government, starting with the imposition of taxes. So that is what money comes from, is these social relationships. So I trust that the guy I'm playing poker with is going to follow the rules and pay when he loses, and will, you know, not take too much from me when I lose. That's a social relationship that we have, and that money comes between that social relationship. It defines that social relationship. And to think that the value of money comes from gold, from an inanimate object, is basically a statement that you don't trust other people, that you don't have trust in other people, when the only thing that matters is trust in other people. Gold, even if we say that gold has value, it's only because you and I agree
Right.
on
We
that.
decided it does. Yeah.
We decided it does. And if we exchange something, that you and I have an agreement on the terms of that exchange.
Mhm.
So it's like a contract we sign. It's an IOU. So that was the first thing that was the first week that we talked about, was what is money? Where does it come from? That it's state-based, it's not gold-based, and so on. So that was week one. Then we talked about cryptocurrencies. I sent you a couple images regarding that. And that cryptocurrencies, and not just cryptocurrencies, but shadow banks and anything that's not a core banking, a core bank, a commercial bank that's officially sanctioned by the government, fundamentally depends on the money of the government.
Right.
So cryptocurrencies cannot exist without the government. Cryptocurrencies, you'll hear people say, well, we want to replace government money. Sorry, but you can't exist unless government money exists. The only exception is if you can completely overthrow the government and then have taxes being paid in cryptocurrency, wages being paid in cryptocurrency, prices of all the things that we buy in cryptocurrency, then yes, and control the internet, because obviously it's internet based, then we can talk about cryptocurrencies taking over fiat money, taking over government money. But until that day, cryptocurrency is priced in fiat money.
Right.
Any exchanges made has to have fiat money, has to have US dollars as the middleman between that.
Yeah, and just to jump in real quick, you and I did have a more extensive conversation on cryptocurrencies in general on one of these other episodes.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, I'm not completely against cryptocurrencies. I do see some value in the technology that is the blockchain and in the technology itself. However, yeah, like you said, when you hear people saying, "Oh, it's going to take over money," it's like, well, it's based on fiat money. So how is that? You're skipping a step here if you think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing wrong or not wrong with cryptocurrency. You just need to understand what it is, and to pretend that it's something that can replace government money. That's a big ask. You literally have to take over the government and do all of those things of make taxes being paid by crypto and so on. That's a big deal. So that was number two. That was the big topic number two. The next thing was, accounting. So basically, our society is based on the concept that you have to accumulate points in order to survive. You have to accumulate points to get food, to get gas, to get a car, to get things that you need to survive, things that shouldn't even have a price, such as healthcare and education and insurance. And, so you have to accumulate points in order to survive. That's what our society is. And those points are accounted for in accounting tables. Your checkbook ledger is an accounting table. Your bank has your name and how much money you have in an accounting ledger on a computer system. At the central bank, they have computer systems as well that accounts how many points those banks have. The banks account for how many points you have. So some of our money might be physical, some of our money might be paper bills or coins or so on. But the vast majority of our money is in accounting tables at banks, credit card companies, mortgage companies, and so on. It's just points. And so understanding accounting is enlightening. And it is the only difficulty of it is logic. There's hardly any math behind it. And I've been really diving into understanding accounting, which I've had a couple of pretty big breakthroughs that I didn't realize that I had very wrong assumptions in my head just because I made them up. I never learned them. I just made up these wrong assumptions in my head. And then looking at the accounting was difficult until I realized what I was, getting wrong. And then taking wrong. Well, one example is that money doesn't exist until both parties agree that it exists. And what I mean by that is a bank creates a loan, but that loan doesn't exist until they sign the loan contract. So until the borrower signs the loan contract, that deposit doesn't exist. So they borrow $1,000. That $1,000 doesn't pop into their deposit account, their checking account, until they sign that loan contract. And until that loan contract is signed, it's not an asset for the bank, meaning they have a contract in as an asset, which says that this person, this borrower, is going to pay me. So that's their asset. Their liability is their money in your checking account. So they commit to giving you $1,000 that you can withdraw. But their asset is a contract that says that you're going to pay them plus interest.
Mm-hmm.
That money, the contract for them and the deposit for you, does not exist until both parties sign that contract. And the same thing is true with bonds. So you'll propose, the country might propose, the central bank, whatever, the treasury might propose that a bond's going to be sold. We'll sell it. It's 5% for $1,000 for 5 years, whatever it is. But it doesn't exist until it's sold. And that concept is profound, because my thinking that, okay, well, how do they create the bond before it's sold? And I'm trying to figure out the accounting of, they create the bond but I don't see how to put that in the accounting, because it doesn't go in the accounting until it's purchased. Money doesn't exist until both parties agree that it exists. And one last thing is, like, I owe you for $20. I wrote it. I owe you for $20, and I'm just holding it. Does that mean anything? No, it doesn't. But then I hand it to you, and now it means something. Now I'm committing to you that I'm going to give you $20. And when you hand me that back, that I owe you, that is our social relationship, our agreement that is money. And that when you hand it back to me, I give you something in exchange for it.
Okay. I mean, if you want to test this in real time, we can go ahead and do this. You can hand me a thing that says you owe me $20. I mean, just so we could teach everybody, Jeff.
I'm going to hand you a thing that says you owe me $20. And when you agree with that, then it's money. Cool. I told my kid I'm going to make your allowance negative $4,000. I can do that.
Nice. So what else?
What else? I did write notes. Yeah. So accounting, in one sense, just general accounting is really enlightening, because that is money in that is money in our current society. It doesn't, it could be different if we chose for it to be different, but in our society, accounting is money, pretty much. Accounting is how we keep track of money, how we keep track of those points. So that's one thing. And then there's another level of it, which is national accounting. Mm-hmm. Because we have accounts at the banks. They create our money, and they create it by creating a loan. So our money is a deposit account plus a loan. So we have a bank. The banks have a bank, which is the central bank. So they have the same thing. They have reserve accounts, which is just like our checking account. They have some promise note that, that bank will, I know what it is. It just came. The bank will follow the regulations of the United States in exchange for these reserves. I just came to me as I'm talking to you. But the central bank doesn't have a bank. That's the top. Yeah. And so now you get into weird logic of when the government pays the central bank for the central bank buys a treasury from someone, from me. Say I buy a bond, and now the central bank buys it back, and now they have a bond. The central bank has a bond. The central bank basically has its own money. How do they get paid without interest? Because they do. They get paid by the government. The government has an account at their bank. The government's account is at the central bank. So it's like I, as the owner of the bank, withdraw my money and I pay it to a teller. That's a kind of this twisted circle of logic of how the government pays other institutions in the government. They have an account at the bank. And so I own the bank, and from a personal level, I own the bank. So how do I pay the bank? I withdraw money from that bank and then get it handed to a teller, which, what do they do with it? It doesn't even exist at that point. And then the final thing is that the government owns the bank. It owns the central bank. So the central bank has to pay its profits to its shareholders, which is the government. How does it do that? It just puts the money right back into that same account. So the government pays the central bank for the treasuries, pays the central bank for the bonds that it owns. And what does the central bank have to do? It has to pay its shareholders, which is that same exact person. So the money just goes right back into that same exact account. It's really kind of that realization of this kind of recursiveness was really enlightening. So that's just a small taste.
So is that kind of what's behind this image that you sent? Kind of unpack that for a second.
Not the accounting, not really. It's more related to the cryptocurrency thing, which is basically that markets emerge from law, markets emerge from government, but they want us to think that markets emerge from markets, that law emerges from markets. But when you pull back, as we do on the right-hand side of this picture,
Right.
the law is actually in control. And so you can't plug a television set into itself. That there must be an external source of power. So there has to, the government is the external source of power for the market. Market couldn't exist unless the government kept bailing them out. And the idea that there is a free market is as if there's a six plug thing that's television plugged into itself. Sure, it'll work for a little while, but soon enough it will die, because it requires the government, just like cryptocurrency requires the existence of the government for stability, for benchmarking what its value is. So saying it's worth this much in dollars, and for for regulations and for supporting them when someone breaks the law. So the market, just like cryptocurrency, emerges from governments. Markets emerge from governments, where the false idea, where barter is the idea that governments emerge from markets.
Man, that's
I
a
know.
Nice crash course, man.
I know it was kind of high speed, but I'm curious, did you at least get some, vague kind of understandings of some of the accounting logic?
No, dude, totally. And keep in mind, like, I have read debt before. And for those who are listening who haven't, and you're just kind of getting like a crash course in all this stuff, again, can't recommend that book enough. It is very big, it is very long, but take your time with it, and like revisit things if you have to. I took my time reading it, believe me. But Debt by David Graeber. Fantastic book, which, by the way, rest in power, David Graeber. Unfortunately, we lost him way too soon. I think he passed away. What, has it been 2 years already?
2018, I think it was.
Yeah, it's been more than that. Okay.
Or maybe it was 2020. Maybe it was 2020. It was recent. Yeah, no, we met in 2018. Yeah, we met in 2018. He was alive back then, so it was probably, I think, 2020.
Right on. Well, Jeff, thank you for that. Congratulations on everything once again. And before you get out of here, let everyone know where to find you.
I will. Just a final comment is I read a fascinating paper by Jason Hickel, who's a really interesting follow on Twitter, which this, inequality, how at an individual level, the rich exploit the poor so they don't have to downgrade to a gold-plated pool. Because that would be devastation to have to downgrade to a gold-plated pool. The rich exploit the poor in order to lavish themselves, in order to avoid having to lavish themselves less. And this paper by Jason Hickel shows that is fundamentally how our society is designed on even an international level, where colonialism of global South nations are based on exactly the same thing: exploiting poorer countries so that rich countries can not have to lavish themselves slightly less. So final comment. I'll answer your question. So where can people get in touch with me? Patreon.com/activistmmt. I've started weekly patron streams inspired by you, with my Torrens classmates. So we discuss the stuff of the week. We will go through our homework together live on screen and write the accounting on the screen. And it's really, really interesting stuff.
So Patreon classmates from all over the world?
Roughly about half in the US and half in Australia. There's some in England. There's some in, yes. So yes. Twitter, Facebook, Activist MMT. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
As always, Jeff. And we'll see you next month. Take care, buddy.
Thank you. See you.
Peace. Jeff Epstein, everyone, the MMT dealer, going through an MMT master's degree at Torrens in Australia. He's taking it online. He's not in Australia. He has a family here and stuff. He's still in the U.S., but he's going to school online. And check out his work at Activist MMT. That was our MMT Time segment of the month. And pretty good crash course. If you're not super familiar with MMT, that's a good nuts and bolts starting point. What is money? What does it really mean? Well, it's an agreement people made, really. They decided something has value. Anyway, let's get into the rest of it today. So, the midterms are coming up. And I don't know about you, but it seems kind of anticlimactic. I feel like I remember midterms past where it would be, oh man, the midterms, this is big. Everyone get out now. I feel like as a society, we're just looking at these two clown car Wall Street sponsored parties and we're just like, are they still doing this? Are they still all right? I guess. Okay. This one's the most important one of our life, just like the last. Okay. Okay. I feel like people are a bit tired. And I get it. I get it. Because here's something that's going on in the digital rights space as we reflect on the midterms coming up. Gigi Sohn, that's who's in this photo. Gigi Sohn was Joe Biden's appointment to the FCC. To Joe Biden's credit, he promised a pro-net neutrality FCC appointee, and he did appoint someone who's pro-net neutrality, Gigi Sohn. She still has not been confirmed. It has been nearly 2 years. She has not been confirmed. He was already breaking records almost a year ago. She still has not been confirmed. The FCC is in gridlock right now, 2-2, 2 anti-net neutrality, 2 pro-net neutrality. We were promised a pro-net neutrality FCC. This is the first time, possibly ever in American history, where we have an FCC that does not reflect the White House. Because nobody cares. Nobody cares. Joe Biden doesn't really care about net neutrality. He started his freaking campaign with a bunch of Comcast executives. But he was pressured into making that promise. And I guess he kind of kept it. He nominated her, but she hasn't been confirmed yet, and no one's doing anything about it. So here's a headline over at the Daily Dot. Big Telecom's relentless lobbying is pushing Gigi Sohn's FCC nomination to the brink. So we're at the point now where it might not happen at all. And here's why. A relentless media smear campaign is helping launder harmful congressional inaction on the FCC, leaving the nation's top telecom regulator gridlocked and unable to implement meaningful reform. A source close to the process says the Biden administration remains committed to pushing Gigi Sohn to the FCC, but they're not really doing anything. The administration has provided little public support for Sohn, leaving her largely alone in a fight against a $1.7 trillion industry dedicated to crushing her candidacy. After an inexplicable 9-month delay upon taking office, Joe Biden nominated her last October. Sohn, a longstanding consumer champion and former FCC advisor, isn't inherently controversial. She's historically popular in telecom circles across both sides of the aisle. She has decades of experience in consumer protection and government. So she is beyond qualified. She has over 30 years of experience. Trump's last appointee, that's Singleton guy, Matthew Singleton, or whatever. I think I might be mispronouncing his name. That guy's only qualification to be on the FCC was he owned a laptop. He had no experience or qualifications whatsoever. He was confirmed within a month. Gigi Sohn, 30 years of experience, they're still not confirming her. Why? Well, because there's a big cable lobby that doesn't want net neutrality back. So they're making up all this stuff. Oh, she's controversial because one time she tweeted that she doesn't like Fox News. Now, the attacks have taken a toll. Getting back to the piece here, the attacks have taken a toll on Sohn politically, leaving the nomination in limbo, and the FCC stuck without a voting majority nearly 2 years into Biden's term. Here's the rub, folks. If Sohn isn't confirmed by year's end, her nomination will need renewal under a new Congress, and it remains unclear if the Biden administration has the political backbone to do so. As it currently stands, Sohn's confirmation would need the support of all 50 Senate Democrats, thanks to a unified blockade by Republicans. The upcoming midterms, just 6 weeks away, loom large as to whether this dynamic could be dramatically altered one way or another. Nathan Symington, by the way, that's Trump guy. I think I said Matt. Nathan Symington. And they point this out in the article. It took him less than a month to finalize that guy. Meanwhile, 2 years, Gigi Sohn still is not confirmed. Still. It is unreal. And now it might not happen at all. Because if they have to re-up her, re-up her nomination, that might not even happen. because there needs to be some political will from the Biden administration that we've seen none of so far. And the midterms are happening. So things are going to switch. She might not have the votes to be confirmed. Unbelievable. Now, here's a little bit of good news as far as net neutrality goes. Or rather, just a reminder. There is something we can do despite the gridlock at the FCC. And here's what that something is. Keep in mind, there is a bill floating around Congress that just gives us net neutrality back. Here's an article from back in July from The Verge. Democrats revived the fight for net neutrality. Democrats put out a new bill to codify the rules. So Ed Markey out of Massachusetts and Ron Wyden, two elected officials that do have a very good track record when it comes to digital rights. They're both pretty good on net neutrality and digital rights. So the Net Neutrality and Broadband Justice Act would reclassify broadband internet service as an essential service, authorizing the FCC to enforce rules. So basically, what gives us net neutrality is they designate the internet as a Title II classification, which means it's a utility in our lives. This bill reclassifies it as a utility, which means we'd get net neutrality back. And that bill, again, is the Net Neutrality and Broadband Justice Act. You can go to battleforthenet.com, sign the petition to demand that Congress you bring that up for a vote. Battleforthenet.com. So that's a midterm update as far as net neutrality is concerned. And this is amazing. Groundbreaking. I mean, it's the easiest win you could possibly ask for. And they're not even acting on this. They're not even acting on this. And hey, surprise, surprise, Joe Biden started his campaign with a bunch of Comcast executives. There's a number of things going on here. Some of it, a lot of it, rather, is just apathy from the powers that be. They don't really give a shit. They don't really give a shit. Biden kept his promise, appointed a pro-net neutrality FCC person. Okay, that's true. But he doesn't really give a shit if she gets confirmed or not. He doesn't care. So, battleforthenet.com. Battleforthenet.com. We got to scream to make them do things they don't want to do. That's how politics works in the United States. That's how politics works anywhere where you live in an oligarchy. You have to scream and force them to pass policy they don't want to pass. And how do you do that? Well, you pressure them and you make them realize that if they don't do this, they might lose their job. So there's a net neutrality update. So let's get to the main lead for today's show, which keeps us in the digital rights world. The Supreme Court could be making a very significant ruling that could literally end the internet as we know it, because this ruling involves Section 230. Now, what is Section 230? Section 230 is the policy that really just allows free speech on the internet. It is commonly referred to these days as the, quote, social media shield, because one of the things Section 230 does is it shields social media from liability for things that users post. Now, people are saying that Section 230 needs to end because of that. However, what they're missing is that Section 230 is way more extensive than that. It doesn't just apply to social media companies. It applies to all users and websites on the internet. It applies to you. It applies to me. It applies to something like Craigslist. It applies to all speech on the internet, not just social media. So blowing a hole in Section 230 is not the answer, because that's the legislation that gives us free speech on the internet as we know it. What we should do instead is apply new policy in addition that meets the moment and regulates how these social media companies are allowed to act. Because no one's disputing that there's a problem with Mark Zuckerberg and his friends being able to decide what is and isn't free speech. Nobody argues that these social media companies don't have entirely too much power. And quite frankly, they're very annoying. But the solution isn't to blow a hole in Section 230. The solution is to have new policy that meets the moment and dictates how these social media companies have to act. My solution, make them follow the free speech laws of the United States. We have free speech laws. We've had it for a long time. Make them follow it. Problem solved. But anyway, so here's what's really going on. How the Supreme Court could break the internet as we know it. The Supreme Court this week announced that it will take up a pair of cases that could fundamentally change the legal foundations of the internet. Both cases ask the justices to consider how far protections that shield websites and social media companies from legal liability over what users post on their platform should go. Those protections were created with Section 230. For the past 26 years, Section 230 has undergirded nearly everything about how the internet functions. Experts widely agree big tech giants like Google, Facebook, Twitter would not exist in their current forms without the legal armor they receive from Section 230. All right, so they're talking about the criticisms about Section 230. So many communication law experts fear that a decision throwing out Section 230 would create chaos in one of the world's most important industries as companies attempt to quickly react to a sudden and drastic change in the legal landscape. They argue that because few companies will be able to endure the new financial risk of lawsuits over user-generated posts, venues for free speech online would rapidly erode or even disappear. That's the other thing. You get rid of Section 230, you assure that there's never going to be another Facebook or another YouTube. You assure that they will be all powerful forever because nobody else will be able to stand up to them because they would be liable for lawsuits if a user posts something. They're not going to be able to withstand that. You know who could, though? Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. So ruling in these two cases, which are expected next year, may not be the only time the court weighs in on Section 230 this term. The justices have also been asked to consider cases regarding recently passed laws in Texas and Florida that bar social media companies from removing posts based on political ideology. So they're going to be ruling on these cases that reference Section 230. So depending on what they decide, that could end Section 230 as we know it, which would end the free and open internet as we know it. And who are we relying on this case? We're relying on the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court of the United States is to the law what Monsanto is to food. They are a complete fake organization. They are a hyper-partisan political football that is dangled over our heads like a carrot every time it's time to vote. They have no business existing, at least not in the way they do. The Supreme Court is a total and utter scam. It is just a bunch of hyper-partisan, dogmatic, religious extremists, in most cases, that are trying to impose their theocratic will on the people who live here. It has nothing to do with the law. It is a scam. In fact, it thumps its nose at the very idea of law in a democratic society. That's what the Supreme Court in the United States is. I know a lot of people, they try to polish that turd. They try to have reverence for what the Supreme Court is supposed to be. They are the people who don't realize professional wrestling is fake. So that is who is going to be making these decisions. They're going to be making decisions soon regarding Section 230, which could, depending on what they do, blow a hole in the internet as we know it. So here's something you can do right now to start fighting back against this. Because here's the deal, folks. The internet as we know it is in danger. And by the way, our safety on the internet as we know it is in danger. They blow a hole at Section 230. And all of a sudden, social media companies are liable for stuff people post. We don't have free speech on the internet. What do you think is going to happen to our messages? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, you're already hearing stuff about messages on Facebook being reported by Facebook because it's about abortion rights in states where they've rolled back abortion rights because we're living in a post-Roe world. We've covered that on this show, where Facebook's been reporting information regarding abortion that's been exchanged within people's messages, their private messages. How bad do you think that's going to get in a post-Section 230 internet? So here's something we can do right now. This is from Fight for the Future, who I collaborate with. End-to-end encryption protects private DMs from hacker attacks and employee snooping. Snoopy. They protect you from Snoopy. Snoopy the dog. He's always trying to troll your DMs, slide into them. That's Snoopy. He's a mischievous one. I'll start that one again. End-to-end encryption protects private DMs from hacker attacks and employee snooping. But Twitter, Apple, Meta, and Google haven't fully rolled out E2EE, which is encryption on your messages, so our messages aren't safe. So there is a letter you could sign, open letter, make DMS safe. And it is makedmssafe.com. That's 2 S's, so makedmssafe.com. And here, let's go. We'll go ahead, open the link itself. I've already signed the petition. I encourage you all to do the same. But here is the verbiage on that letter. We'll go ahead and look at it here. Facebook recently handed over direct messages. This is what I just referenced. Facebook recently handed over direct messages between a mom and her teenage daughter to police. Now they're being prosecuted under the state's anti-abortion law. That's the mother and her daughter, by the way, not Facebook. In an increasingly dangerous world, there's one simple thing every messaging platform must do right now. Make our messages safe using end-to-end encryption. Again, you can sign this, makedmssafe.com. Makedmssafe.com. Please sign it. I signed it. We got to fight back because the internet, as we know it, could be in a lot of danger real soon, depending on how the Supreme Court rules, blowing a hole in Section 230. That could happen. So we got to fight back. MakeDMSSafe.com. And while you're at it, you guys know what I'm going to say next. AntitrustVoteNow.com. Force the antitrust vote. AntitrustVoteNow.com. Guys, I actually, before we sign out here for the week, I got some tour dates. Oh, man, it's getting close to 2023, and I got some tour dates, which, by the way, smash the like button, please. What's up, Venetia? Venetia, you say welcome back. Thank you very much for that. This is our first show back in a couple weeks, which I had a wonderful trip to Italy. It was amazing. My cousin's wedding was amazing. That was why I was in Italy, because my Italian cousin was getting married. One of my Italian cousins. I have a bunch of them, but one of them was getting married. It was incredible. I talked about it a lot on this week's patron stream, which happened yesterday, which, by the way, patreon.com/Ron Placone. If you missed that and want to catch it, I went into detail about my trip. I talked some about being over there when the election happened. I'll be talking about that some on Status Quo this week, by the way. Donna, what's up? How are you? Peter Joseph goes into detailed disclosure of this understanding on the Zeitgeist addendum. So worth your time to view. I love Peter Joseph's stuff. I've not seen that specifically. I mean, I saw the original Zeitgeist that he did many years ago. I've not seen that, but yeah, I like Peter's stuff a lot. He does amazing work. So anyway, guys, tour dates, I got them. First couple tour dates of 2023 have been announced. January 28th, I'm going to be in Tucson, Arizona at the Screening Room. You can get tickets now. They just went on sale. You can get tickets now at ronplacone.com. In Tucson, I got a little bit of more news for you. If you use the promo code Lucy at checkout, you get an early bird special on tickets, and that's going to be going on for the month. So Tucson, get your tickets soon, and you get a discount. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout, and you get money off the tickets. I know we're in a tough world right now. I know money's tight. I know you only got so much entertainment dollars to go around. So there's an early bird special. And by the way, for all my tour dates in 2023, I'm going to try to have early bird specials as much as I can, where if you get tickets ahead of time, you get a discount on tickets. I will do that for every show where I control the ticketing, which is most of them. But sometimes, depending on the venue does the ticketing and I'm not able to. So, but for every show I am able to this coming year in 2023, there will be an early bird special. So Tucson, get your tickets now. again, that show is January 28th. Let me make sure about that, actually. I'm pretty sure, but can you tell it's my first show back in 3 weeks? Can you tell? I'm like, let me make sure. Let me make sure I have the right date here. Yes, January 28th, Tucson, Arizona. Get your early bird tickets now. Go to my website, ronplacone.com, and click on the ticket link and enter the promo code Lucy, and you will get discounted tickets. That's January 28th, Tucson, Arizona. San Diego, California, February 17th and February 18th. I'm doing 2 shows in town, a Friday and Saturday night. The shows are at different places. I'm doing shows with Comedy Heights. They run comedy shows in 2 different venues on Friday and Saturday nights. Those shows are free, but it's recommended you make a reservation ahead of time. So I got free shows in San Diego, February 17th and 18th, ronplacone.com for information there to make your reservation now. So January 28th, Tucson, get discounted tickets. February 17th and 18th, San Diego. I'll be announcing more tour dates, including UK. I'm going to be coming to the UK in 2023, so keep a lookout for that. But those are the first dates I got to announce in 2023 so far, guys. And again, if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, patreon.com/ronplacone for a give what you can level. You can watch my short film Loner, which, by the way, at the Tucson show, we're going to screen Loner, and that is going to be the first public screening of the film. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Yes, we're going to be screening my short film Loner in Tucson because the show's at a place called the Screening Room, which is an independent movie theater. They do stand-up too. So we're going to do a stand-up show, and then we're going to be showing the short film. It's only 12 minutes. The film is only 12 minutes. So it's a very short, thing. But we're going to be screening Loner, and it is going to be the first public screening of the film. But you can watch that film right now if you're a patron. Patreon.com/ronplacone. You can watch that film right now. You can also watch my performance as Lucian. Some of y'all know I've been talking about it. I recently wrote a historic interpretation of Lucian the satirist, one of the world's first satirists. He was around 125 AD. I wrote a historic interpretation of him based on his work. And I'm going to hopefully be bringing that to Renaissance fairs over the next few years in the United States and elsewhere. I premiered it in San Pedro, my neighborhood, a few weeks back. You can watch that entire performance now if you are a patron. Patreon.com/ronplacone. For a give what you can level, you can get all that stuff I just described and all my weekly patron streams for as low as $1 a month. I don't have tiers on my Patreon. I don't do one of those things where you have to give this much or you get this. No, you give whatever you're comfortable giving. Whatever you're comfortable giving. If $1 a month's all you got, that's fine. Not all you got. You know what I mean, though. If all you have is $1 a month and you give it to me, that's great. That'd be terrible. I don't want that. But you know what I mean. Whatever you're comfortable giving. If you're comfortable giving $10 a month, that's great. If you're not going to miss it, that's great. If times are tough and, hey, Ron, all I got's $1 a month, that's great too. Doesn't matter. I want your membership. I want you to join the community. I don't care what the amount is. So aggravated progressive, what's up? Wish I could see it. You can. Patreon.com/ronplacone. $1 a month. All it takes. How'd Lucian go? It was a lot of fun. And I hope you can check it out. Patreon.com/ronplacone. So folks, ronplacone.com for tickets in Tucson and San Diego. And I'll be announcing a lot more dates soon. And also patreon.com/ronplacone. And last but certainly not least, antitrustvotenow.com. And again, makedmssafe.com. Please do sign those petitions. Makedmssafe.com and antitrustvotenow.com. Guys, we'll be back next week. Feels good to be back. I have missed you all. I have missed you all very much, and it feels good to be back. And I don't know what else to say. It feels good to be back. Feels good to be back. I've missed this a lot. I couldn't sleep the other night because I was just so excited to get back to it. So I had a wonderful time in Italy. I really, really did. But it is wonderful to be back. and to be back streaming again and for the show to be back. And I'll see you all over on Status Quo on Thursdays. And then next Get Your News On with Ron will be on next Wednesday. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. I say peace, love, and a general strike.